The late afternoon sun bled over the edges of the desert canyon, painting the sandstone cliffs in hues of fire. The cicadas buzzed lazily, and the wind carried with it the dry scent of dust and sagebrush. Somewhere in that vast emptiness, a boy's voice broke the stillness. His cries were not the playful shouts of a child at play. They were raw, urgent, desperate. "Help! Somebody! Please, my mama's in the canyon." His voice cracked against the stone walls, echoing back at him, so that for a moment he almost felt mocked by the canyon itself. He couldn't have been older than 8, small, wiry, with hair matted from sweat and dust smeared across his cheeks. His sneakers were worn, laces frayed, and his shirt clung damp to his skin. He had been running for what felt like hours, calling to strangers who passed along the dusty roadside near the rim. Most people drove by. Some slowed down to stare, then shook their heads, assuming this must be some prank, some boy's imagination gone wild. After all, who believes a child crying wolf? But this wasn't a lie. Inside the canyon, at its base, hidden by shadow and stone, the boy's mother lay injured, her leg pinned beneath a rock from a tumble that had happened hours before. She had whispered through clenched teeth, "Go find help, Ethan. Go. Don't be afraid. Just don't stop shouting until someone listens." And so he had shouted. Until his throat burned, until his chest heaved like it might burst. Car after car passed. A pair of hikers laughed nervously, assuming he was just another kid messing around. A man in a dusty hat waved him off. "Go home, boy. Quit playin'." Even an elderly couple shook their heads, muttering about children who had no respect for seriousness. With every dismissal, the boy felt a heavier weight sink into his small heart. Maybe no one would ever believe him. Maybe his mama would be left there in the canyon until the silence swallowed her whole. But then, as dusk began to crawl across the horizon and the world took on that lonely shade between day and night, a truck slowed to a stop. Dust kicked up around its tires, clouding the boy in a haze. Out stepped a man, a stranger with tired eyes, his jeans stained from long work, and a face that looked weathered by both the sun and the weight of years. He had the kind of presence that didn't announce itself loudly, but quietly, like a steady hand on a shoulder when you're trembling. The boy ran to him, tugging at his sleeve, voice breaking with desperation. "Please, sir. Please, you have to help me. My mama's down there. She's hurt. Nobody believes me, but she's down there. I swear she is." The man crouched, meeting the boy's eyes. He saw it, the raw fear, the trembling sincerity, the tears brimming against stubborn courage. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a child playing games. This was a boy carrying the unbearable weight of being the only lifeline between his mama and death. Without hesitation, the stranger said softly, "Show me." Ethan's breath caught. For the first time in hours, someone had listened. Someone believed him. The boy led the way, scrambling toward the narrow trail that wound down into the canyon. The man followed, steady, careful, his boots gripping the rock. Darkness crept quickly now, painting the canyon in shadows, but they pressed on. Halfway down, the boy slipped, skinning his knee, but the stranger caught him by the arm before he could tumble further. "Easy," he murmured, steadying him. "We'll get to her." At the bottom, they found her. She was pale, lips cracked from thirst, her leg trapped beneath a jagged boulder. When her eyes fluttered open and she saw her boy with a stranger at his side, relief spilled across her face like water breaking a dam. You found someone," she whispered. "I told you I would, Mama," Ethan said, tears cutting streaks through the dirt on his face. The man wasted no time. He inspected the rock, braced his body, and with a grunt of exertion, pushed with all his strength. The boulder shifted just enough. The woman cried out in pain, but then the weight lifted. He pulled her free, careful not to jolt her injured leg. "We'll get you out of here," he said firmly, already stripping off his flannel shirt to bind her wound. His movements were practiced, steady, as though he had done something like this before. Maybe he had. Maybe life had forced him into moments where hesitation wasn't an option. As they worked their way back up, the boy clung to his mother's hand, refusing to let go, while the man bore most of her weight against his shoulder. Step by step, they climbed, the canyon walls towering above like silent witnesses to their struggle. When they finally reached the roadside, headlights from a passing car lit the scene. This time, when the boy waved his arms, shouting for help, people stopped. This time, they didn't dismiss him. An ambulance was called. Paramedics lifted his mother onto a stretcher, fitting her with oxygen, checking her vitals. Ethan clutched her hand until they promised she'd be okay. In the commotion, he looked around for the stranger. For the man who had believed him when no one else would. But the man stood a little apart, silent, watching. And as the ambulance doors closed and the siren wailed into the night, he tipped his hat, turned, and walked back toward his truck. Ethan darted forward. "Wait," he cried. "Mister, what's your name? Why did you stop? Why did you believe me?" The man paused, one hand resting on the rusted door of his truck. His eyes softened, though there was a sadness in them, too, a kind of grief buried deep but not erased. "Once, a long time ago," he said quietly, "I needed someone to believe me. But no one did. Not in time." He swallowed hard, his voice rough. "I swore if I ever saw someone else crying for help the way I had, I'd listen." The boy blinked, not fully understanding, but feeling the weight of those words all the same. The man gave a small nod, climbed into his truck, and drove away. No name. No thanks asked for. Just a stranger who had chosen to stop, to care, to listen. Years later, Ethan would grow up and tell the story again and again, not of the canyon, not of the fall, not even of his mother's survival. But of the man. The man who stopped when no one else would. The man who proved that sometimes the difference between despair and salvation is just one person willing to listen. And every time he told it, Ethan ended the same way: if you hear someone crying out, don't turn away. Don't assume it's a lie. Don't be too busy. Because one day, it might be you in the canyon. And all it takes is one stranger to change everything. And somewhere in the echoes of the canyon walls, if you listened closely, it almost sounded like a boy's voice still crying out, only now, instead of desperation, it carried hope.